All right, we are live. We're back with The Positive Effect. My name's April Sobral. I'm the host of this weekly show on LinkedIn, and you can now find it on Spotify and Apple Podcast. And if you haven't joined us before, welcome. And if you're coming back, thanks for coming back. And also just put your name in the feed where you are coming from, because we love to go back and, engage with you after the show. Share anything, any insights, anything you love from this conversation. This is a conversation about retail and retail leadership, the two things that I'm most passionate about. And it's brought to life really to celebrate those positive leaders in the business that are having a positive effect on the people that they lead and the businesses that they lead. And today I'm so excited because I have Cyndi Coe on. Welcome, Cyndi, to the show.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
I'm
Great
so
to be
excited
here.
because I know you've been following it. I see you making, the comments on the weekly, and
Mhm.
you've got an amazing career. And I love talking to field leaders, like particularly people that have been promoted, grown up through the ranks, because I think you have so much amazing stories to share, and it's all about your leadership. So, Ron coined that phrase, a friend of mine. Was your career accidental or intentional? So we're going to start off with, just tell us who you are, where you work, what role you're in, and then really talk to me about your retail journey. Why retail, and how did you get into it?
Okay. I'm Cyndi Coe. I am presently the regional director of the Northeast for J.Jill. I've been there. I'll be celebrating my 10th year this year, which is very exciting, and it's a really wonderful organization to work for. Um, how did I start my journey in retail? Why retail?
Yeah.
That's a long story. I can tell you that I think, like many people, there's a lot of influences that happen to our lives. For me, when I was a senior in high school, my plans were to go to Bowling Green State University on a partial scholarship and study art. And I was the oldest of four children. And
Right.
so I had enough credits that I thought, well, you know what, Dad, let me graduate early and let me go to college at the University of Toledo, get my feet wet, and then I'll go to the Bowling Green State University in the fall. I had a younger brother and two younger sisters. And even though I left school in January, I came back and stayed with school to participate in some athletic programs that were going on to raise money for the athletic division of the school. They were called Whitmer Ladders. I went to Whitmer High School. So so happened that on February one day, I had my classes didn't really start till March. So I was in the gymnasium, and my partner for the ladder program came in and said, I need you to come. Your brother's hurt. And so I said, wait, break his arm, break his leg. What do you do? Because my brother was an amazing baseball player, great athlete.
Okay.
And so he said, no, you have to come. So I went. And unfortunately, what happened is my brother had a terrible gymnastic accident, and he ended up to be a quadriplegic.
Mm.
I think the interesting thing about this story that I want you to know is 2 weeks before this event, my father came to me and he handed me a checkbook, which was my college tuition, and said, here you go, Sin. And my father had saved a lot of money from my college as an oldest daughter and was quite proud of my focus on art. My father was an engineer. So my life changed immediately, overnight. And so my brother, unfortunately, was a quad for 42 years. And he lived a fruitful life. He did many things. He drove, he worked, he did things that they said he would never do. So I'm really proud of him for that. But I also, likewise, did some things that maybe no one thought I would do. And that was I gave my checkbook back to my dad for my brother's rehab. And I went to work in retail.
Wow.
I had to pay my bills. I had a car. I had college tuition that needed to be paid. I had a lot of things that I needed to do for myself at that point. And so I went to work in retail. I worked in best products. I worked for a boutique, a women's boutique that was very special in Westgate Shopping Center, and eventually led to Bailey Banks and Biddle, while also going to college and working a couple other jobs and things like that.
And what made you
So
what made you stay in retail?
Well, I landed a job at Jacobson's, which was a high-end department store here in Toledo, and really got a taste of the customer engagement, the quality of the people that you're surrounded with, the quality of the product, the overall experience in total. But that didn't keep me there. What really happened was I had an interview set up for me by somebody that I knew with the Limited. came searching for me and said, you know what, we went to high school together. They're looking for some great people. I thought of you, Cyndi, and would you talk to them? I said, yes. I think the interesting thing was I didn't take the job. And I didn't take the job because I wasn't inspired by the person who was talking to me about the job. I really wanted to work there, but I needed more. About 6 months later, I got a call from a woman by the name of Robin Moffett, who was the new DM of that market area that I lived in, and said, would you please join me for a conversation? I'm looking for store manager candidates. And I said yes. And I accepted that job. I accepted the job as a co-manager at the time in a very small shopping center, Westgate, which is actually where I worked for the small boutique. And that led to an opportunity for me to go to Franklin Park, which was considered a promotion. And then from there, my first job with the Limited was a store manager of Sandusky, Ohio, Cedar Point. So, I think the career progression started actually with my love of Jacobson's, my desire to be in front of the customer, and getting my hands involved in as many different types of products as possible. But I was the kid who used to sit with the JCPenney catalog and the Sears catalog and cut out the model from one catalog and an outfit from another one and put them all together. It's not a mistake that I ended up in the women's fashion industry.
Oh, wow. And you've had, still having an amazing career. So you basically grew up through the ranks of store manager, then did you go to DM, or what was your progression?
Yeah, actually I ran Sandusky, Ohio. And then, I was still pretty instrumental in supporting my parents through my brother's rehab and development. And so an opportunity came open in Franklin Park Mall, which is where the highest volume store was. So I asked if I could please have that. I had done very, very well where I was, and they said yes, and they gave me that opportunity. So the person who was there actually got promoted to the Columbus market, Jean Gilbert, actually. And I took over that store. So I ran that store for a while. I didn't do remarkable. I did okay. I did what I had to do. But that's when the moment district manager crossed my mind for a moment. And I thought, you know what, I think I can do this. So I remember going to a gentleman by the name of Dick Fry, who was a regional director at Victoria's Secrets. He was at the Limited at the time. And he said, I need you to go over to Southwick Mall over here and fix the store. And I said, okay, but here's the deal. I want to be a DM. He said, if you fix that store, you'll become a DM. So I went there, and I never forget walking in the store. Everything in the store was purple. Purple stadium coat, purple corduroys, purple sweater, purple shirt. I was like, good Lord, somebody's got to help me figure out how to fix this. And so, I had a lot of support. I mean, the merchants supported it. We repositioned it. I had to put new talent in the building. And so Bowling Green University was not only a great art school, it was also a great merchandising school. So I remember saying to Dick, you know what, I need to recruit. And there was opportunities throughout the market in Toledo, Ohio, which is where I grew up. And he's like, okay, it's your baby, put it together. I was like, I've never done anything like this before in my life. So what we did is I harnessed the DM's help around us in that market. I thought, if I want to be a DM, I better surround myself with them. And we all went into Bowling Green University, interviewed for 3 solid days. And out of that, I hired 4 assistant managers. And I remember talking to Dick, and he's like, well, did you get any candidates? And I said, yeah. And I learned a lot too, on top of all that, because I was nervous as all get out and just watched and paid attention. I said, yes, I hired 4 ASMs. And he said, well, where are you going to put them? I said, well, I'm going to take 2 of them. And one's going to go to Franklin Park. One's going to go to North Park. And he's like, okay, but how are you going to pay them? I said, all you told me to do was go find assistant managers. That's all you told me to do. You didn't tell me any of the other parts that go along with it. So, I mean, I learned a lot from that experience. I learned how to do that, but I also learned that you need to ask more questions so you can learn more things, right?
I think you just dropped some words of wisdom on us, actually, without even realizing it. It's like you said, well, I want to be a DM. So first of all, you had to ask. A lot of managers don't ask when they want to grow in their career. They think somebody's going to come along and just give it to them. And I learned that earlier on. That you have to ask when I got given a temp manager job. And I was like, why are they posting my stuff? Right. So I think that's one. And you said also surround yourself with, if you want to be a DM, surround yourself with DMs, right? Strategically, you wanted to learn from them. So those 2 things, I think, if you're watching this and you're a manager and you're thinking like, how can I have a career like Cyndi and grow into a regional role? Those two things are like two actions you can take immediately, which is
Yeah.
right.
Well, the interesting thing is I became a DM out of that store. I remember I got a call, and it was the regional director, and he's like, well, I want you to get ready because you have a visitor coming to see you. And I said, and who's that? Bob Grayson, who is the president of the Limited, and he's coming to interview you to be a district manager. And I said, what? You're kidding me. No. I said, oh boy. I harnessed all the help I could get. I'm like, this place is going to be a palace. And he's like, he's not just coming to see your store, Cyndi. He's going to look at some real estate choices. He's going to talk to you about the business. You know, be yourself. Just be yourself. So I picked him up at Toledo Airport, and we were walking out. He and another, I can't even remember who the other gentleman was, so focused on Bob Grayson, you know, we were walking in the parking lot, and I had just bought myself a brand new, it wasn't brand new, it was 7-year-old Mercedes sedan, because I had a friend that was in the car business. And he said, wouldn't it be nice to get in this car? I said, get in. Let me open that door for you. So I traveled, we took him everywhere I could possible within, you know, the limitation. He flew out that night, but we saw 3 stores. We saw 2 real estate sites. And a week later, I became the district manager of Toledo, Ohio, Fort Wayne, Indiana, and Sandusky, Ohio. Wow. So I was very happy. Very, very happy.
Then for a big chunk of your career was working for Limited Brands.
I worked for the Limited Brands for almost 20 years. I actually left for a period of time when my husband and I at the time adopted a little girl. I went through a private adoption. I was afforded the opportunity to do that with a wonderful 401k plan. And so we welcomed into our lives a little girl. But by that time I was in Miami, Florida. What happened out of that promotion was I ran the Toledo, Ohio market for 1.5 years. And then Andy came to me, and the existing regional at the time, and said, we would like you to consider relocating to a larger market. And I said, okay. I mean, my husband and I had talked about, I was fairly newly married, about relocating south because he had sisters that lived in Fort Lauderdale at the time. Mm-hmm. So it's like a warmer climate, okay. And at that point, my brother and my parents were pretty self-sufficient. My sisters were much older. And so he said, it's Cleveland, Ohio, Boston, or Miami, Florida. Well, Cleveland, Ohio, I can drive to Cleveland, Ohio. You know, Boston actually was taken before I even had opportunity to consider because there was an internal candidate, which is awesome. Mm-hmm. So it was Miami, Florida. So I moved to Miami. My husband stayed behind for about 6 months and joined me actually within about 9 months. I was telling you the story earlier. I went to Miami, Florida, and it was overseeing 6 stores. That's when we were getting ready to pioneer the state of Florida and do a major expansion with the Limited. So there were 6 stores I started out with in Miami, Florida. All 6 stores, first of all, I'd been unsupervised by a DM for quite a while, probably about 6 months. But every single store had lost $30,000 in 6 months. We did inventory twice a year at the time. There's a language gap because most people speak Spanish.
Yeah.
Latin.
Yeah.
And every store had about 1 manager. So you want to go from the fire into the frying pan or the frying pan into the fire. I don't know how you want to say that, but I was that person. And I remember standing in Dadeland, which was one of my stores. This is before they built the pad. And I mean, people standing at the gate ready to, you know, it was Forenza and Outback Red. And they were like, just, I want in. And I would stand in the center for the first month and just walk around the store and go, oh my God, you know? But I would tell you that, you know, together, and I say together because one person can't do that job.
Yeah.
You cannot do that job by yourself. You need the power of a team, a talented team, a healthy, hungry, focused, committed team that will work, like just go through walls for you and do the things that need to be done and recognize them for their efforts. And that's what we did. And actually that first year, and it wasn't perfect and it wasn't pretty, but I went to President's Club as the #1 DM in the company. Now here's the story. I was the DM there for 4 years. And then I moved on to a couple other different positions and opportunities throughout the Miami market. But what I did do the 4th year is I went back to President's Club as the #1 DM in the company. And I took every single store manager with me.
Wow.
That was one of our greatest accomplishments. And I will never forget, we used to have meetings in our living rooms. You sit around and you'd have a big powwow and you talk about it. And I remember saying, you know what? We all have to be in this together. We're going to work hard. We need to work smart. We need to help each other. And we need to celebrate the little things, the little wins along the way to get us there. And I will never forget standing on that mountain in Vail, Colorado, when that happened. That was probably one of the happiest moments of my entire life. And I still remember those people because they got me there. That's our accomplishment and our success. So,
that's an amazing
yeah.
story. And you've just shared so much just in that story about like experiences, working together as a team. What's like if you say like, I mean, you just shared some experiences, but do you have a pivotal moment or a lesson learned early in your career that you can share that really kind of helped you learn and grow and like become the successful? Because you're a regional director now. A lot of people looking at your story coming up the ranks now. I know I've just been working with a whole ton of store managers. It's inspiring for them to hear this kind of conversation because yes, they may get it from their DM on a daily basis, but you're somebody that's actually done it. So, you know, a lesson learned that you could share or a pivotal moment.
You know, I would have to tell you, my career, it's the power of the team. You know, we work in teams in this crazy business. Like I said, no one person can be successful. And I think the element or characteristics, I should say, that are important are that you have to trust. The people coming to you have to be committed. They have to be willing to learn because, you know, we come with a point of view because we're strong people. Come with a point of view, and you know, things change constantly. This world changes constantly. And you know, I mean, we were talking about what's happened since COVID. It's like, you know, here we are in this wonderful virtual world platform where we can engage and coach and teach and learn and do all the things that we never imagined we would do. If somebody had asked me 3 years ago that this is what we would be doing, I would be like, oh, okay, no problem. And probably because there was a lot I needed to learn about it. But you know, I think there's a power in teams. I think there's also a power in leadership, and leadership that's really committed, that's transparent, that's human. You know, there has to be empathy. There has to be support. You know, there's the kind of skills that grow you, and there's the kind of skills that develop you. And I individually, somebody said to me, I want to accomplish this, and I would say, okay, what are you prepared to do? Because here's what, based on your current skill set and what you're saying you want, this is the pathway that you're probably going to need to take here. And it's going to rely, your success will rely on your efforts. I can control the rudder. You're going to have to do the work.
Yeah. So you do believe then that the effect of positive leadership has, because I'm all about
without question.
Without question.
Without question. I think that there is a lot to be said. You know, when people fall, pick them up. We all make mistakes. You know, when they fall, pick them up. You know, tell them, hey, I give you credit. You got this far. So you stubbed your knee. Big deal. What's next? You know, don't dwell on the challenge, dwell on the success. And, you know, I think the thing that works for me as a leader in the business is like, it's not about me, it's about them. I'm coming up the rear. I don't need to be in the limelight. I don't need to be at the head of the vine either.
How do you teach that? How do you teach that to young leaders, right? Because
hopefully adaptability. I think that, you know, I mean, first of all, everybody has to believe in what they believe what they believe, right? But I think through success, there's some convincing traits there. I believe in mentorship. And I've mentored a lot of people in a business and out of this business. I mean, I can name, I was fortunate, I don't know if you know the name Kim Delaney, but you know, when I went to Washington, D.C. as a regional director for the Limited to take it from the red to the black, I hired her to run that market. She's amazing. She's an amazing person. She is a hardworking, dedicated person, and she spread her wings. It was like, okay, this is a job I have to do, but I'm going to do this, this, and this too. So, you know, if you want something, then you have to state your case. What do you want? And listen to how you need to get there and be the best at it
Be the
that you
best at it,
possibly be.
and be willing to do that little bit extra, right? Like I know that like back in the day, I had somebody tell me, you have to do the job to get the job. So if you want the job in retail, act like you got it already and do the job. And sometimes that entails doing that little bit extra for people to see what your effort is and what you're doing, whether you're taking on other projects. And what I also heard you say was you moved around, you were willing to take on bigger challenges and move around. And not everybody's able to do that. But I do say that sometimes to leaders that ask me, like, how do I follow in your steps? And I said, I moved countries with kids, like as a single parent,
Mm-hmm.
because I had the support of the retailer. It wasn't like I was moving to a country and I was moving with the same retailer. So there was a lot of familiarity. Now, not everybody can do that, but putting your hand up, like getting involved in things, letting people know that you're interested. It's a big part of growing in your career in retail, right? Like you have to be known for something. I ask leaders that all the time. What do you want to be known for in this district?
Yeah. It was expected back then when I was growing up in retail. It was expected that you would have to relocate. I think lifestyles are different today.
Yeah.
It's not the case. And I'm an example of that. I am a corporate-based regional director of the Northeast. However, I live in Northwest Ohio. And, when I was considered for that opportunity, I was told you have to live in Boston. And I said, I'm not moving. I've moved 13 times in my career, and I will do anything. I can get on a plane in Detroit, Michigan, and be there in an hour and a half, and I can be there as often or as long as you need me,
Yeah.
or as I believe I need to be there based on whatever's going on. But I'm not moving my family.
Yeah.
And I actually, and they said, well, we were looking for someone here, and then it just turned out that the opportunity was presented to me,
Right.
and I'm grateful for that. I'm
Yeah.
very grateful because I love what I do.
Well, that
with
speaks to your leadership, right? Like I think that we've been leading from afar for a very long time in retail.
Mhm.
And so we've learned how to build those relationships, engaging relationships through virtual relationships, because you have stores all over the country. So you can't be there all the time. So you have to figure that out, right? Like going from a DM to a regional director, what's the biggest, I don't know, because you've been a regional director for a while. What's the biggest difference, or one of the biggest lessons learned being a regional versus being a DM?
I don't know that there was anything that was really a big difference for me. I think I can tell you what I missed more than anything was just really the hands-on activity that happened in a store every single day. I mean, it was just like the rubber meets the road in the store. I'm sure you've heard that.
Yeah.
I love that. I mean, and I've heard it said about my leadership that I light up when I go to a store. I am incredibly engaged, very personable. I'm more patient. I want to listen and learn. It's their moment, it's their moment. And, I'm an advocate of their growth, and I am appreciative of their contributions and their successes. And I want them to feel good about that and be recognized for that and to aspire to do more. So I don't know that it's much different because you're still managing people.
Yeah.
You're still leading and guiding and coaching and developing. You're doing all of that. And I do that with district managers. It's not as big of a team as it used to be. Maybe it was at one point, it was 22 stores here at J.Jill. And limited, it was, 15 districts.
Right.
Right now I have 6.
Right.
But the job and the commitment that you make is no different to your team.
That's why you're so successful, Cyndi.
No, I think it's, first of all, I'll tell you the thing that I love about being a regional is it's a big team.
Yeah.
It's a lot of people. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of sharing and guiding and developing, and there's a lot of transparency, and there's tough moments too, including being on the receiving end of that, because sometimes you got to hear the tough story. Like, no, that's not really what I want you to do. I want you to do this.
Yeah.
And then you have to say, okay, I mean, I'll be honest with you. I would tell you that the camaraderie that I feel with my peers, my regional peers at J.Jill this year, coming off of 2 very challenging, difficult years, is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, we're doing some great work right now. And our pride and our energy and our thoughtfulness and our patience has gone into that.
Mm.
You know, we care about the teams, genuinely care about them. And we want them to know that based on the work that we all do, whether it's the regional directors or it's the I mean, it takes a village.
It does.
It just does.
Yeah.
It takes a village.
Well, I can see some comments in the feed that you're going to have to go back and read this after, because it's like people are making really positive comments about your leadership. So you've had and still having a huge impact on the people that you've influenced every day in a positive way. It's like making me smile. Like one of the comments is, "You're a leader I would walk alongside of any time, and I am relocatable." I love it.
Well, one thing that I would also tell you is I'm a very emotional leader. So when I promote people, I cry. I do. It just, I can't do it. I was telling you earlier, I was looking at the feed on LinkedIn and seeing all these wonderful names of people that I have known from my past and know today. And I had to put it down. I was like, oh my God, I'll look at that after the fact. And I think that's the, you know, passion evokes emotion, and I'm an emotional leader. There's no question about it. And I think that can go both ends. It can be in the celebration or in the, why did you do that? You know, when you knew we were supposed to do this. And I mean, and I'm sure that they're going to comment on that too, because that is absolutely who I am. I will tell you, what you see is what you get.
I love that.
All of it. But
what have you learned in the last year and a half, 2 years of COVID? Like, what's been a major lesson learned for you?
I've learned to be patient. I've learned patience. I mean, I think that I've always been a real go-getter, and sometimes I think that go-get is about, you know, down and dirty. We got to do this. We got to do this now. And I think I've learned to be patient. I've embraced empathy. I listen to the stories, you know, and my heart aches, and it's like, I want you to be okay. What can I do for you? What do you need? I think that, you know, we've all been hit in some way, shape, or form by COVID, both from a personal aspect and from a professional aspect. And it's like, you know, how people handle things like that is very different. And to be supportive and thoughtful and kind. But also, I think the other part of it is I've looked at what this experience has afforded me. And I think it's made me a better person. You know, I've been involved with COVID calls where people are deathly ill, or they've lost a loved one, or, you know, they want desperately to come back to work because they know that's what they need to do, but they can't. I mean, there's just all of that. And, you know, that's heartache. So it teaches you to be humble. It teaches you to appreciate what you have.
Yeah, I totally agree. And for me, I think it's like taught me to really, like you said, listen. I think I was always a good listener, but I think now I have more empathy for people's personal situations, because people have lost people. Like, you know, when I was just in the last contract I was in, we lost people in the stores. And I think, you know, I teach don't make assumptions, but I think really now we have to really not make assumptions about our people and really manage the moment, because from moment to moment, so many different things are happening. And I think that's making us more present, I want to say, because you can't have this like 5-year plan, because you don't know what's going to happen. So it does keep you more kind of grounded in that moment, and really paying attention, listening, and not making assumptions, because you just don't know. Like you said, you don't know what's going on in people's lives. I think retail, you know, retail is such a special place to work, because you have that work family, that support, you know, and we have to remember that. That's the core of what we do is people. We're coming up on time. It's crazy how time flies on this show. But yeah, like, so just, you know, in recapping the show today, which was an amazing show, by the way, you're an awesome leader. I mean, I can see it in the feed that you've had such a positive effect and still are on people. But like, if you were going to leave people with like your top 3 tips to be successful, particularly in retail right now, what would they be?
I think the one thing that I would say is it's not about personal and work. It's really a combo of both. It's a total package. It really is. And there really has never been a separation for me, but I think there's times when you spend more time with your family, doing the things that you need to do. I mean, and, you know, part of my story also was I actually get divorced after my ex-husband and I adopted a little baby, and I raised her on my own for almost 10 years. doing this crazy job. And I, eventually came back home to Northwest Ohio, because I remember when I went to work, and I went to work for Claire's for a period of time as a regional director. And I remember, I said, what should I do, Bree? Her name is Brianna. What should I do? And she's like, I want to go home and be with grandma and grandpa and my aunts and uncles and my cousins. So that was a no-brainer for me. It was time for me to sacrifice. I think that's the other thing. You have to be prepared to make sacrifices. You have to, personally and professionally. Sometimes you have to step backwards to go forward. I told you the story about, when Bree was born, I thought I was going to keep working, and I took off a year, and I came back, and guess what? I ran Aventura Mall as a store manager for 6 months. And then I went back into being a DM. I moved over to Limited 2, and I was at the year that they opened 80 stores. Right. And then I went back to the Limited as a regional director about a year and a half later. So I think you make sacrifices. But I think in those sacrifices, you also afford yourself a learning platform. I'm here. Let's make the most of it. I mean, I'll never forget Aventura Mall when I walked in there to run it, and I had been the DM, and there were 500 boxes, unopened boxes, and it was January. I was like, Lord have mercy. I cannot, this is like a retailer dream sitting in this cage back here. It's like, let's get going, bust these things open. And we became the #1 store for like 6 months.
I mean, I think what you're sharing is like humility, right? Like, and being humble, because we can get stuck on a title all the time versus the job that we actually do, because whatever job you do in retail, whether you run a store, you're a DM, you're a regional, you're a VP, and when I was first the DM, I had people that were store managers that had been DMs and regionals, and they'd gone back to run a store because they were later on in life and they just wanted to run a store because they loved being in a store. And at that point, that's what they wanted to do. And I think that's what you're sharing, like be humble and be willing and make those sacrifices. And what I'm hearing is just don't get stuck on the title. Think about the work that you do every day.
Right. It's a people business. And you know what I would tell you? You can dream big in retail. You can dream big and you can hit those dreams. And it's like, I've always in my lifetime just said, be the best you can possibly be. That's all you can ask anybody. So, right. I mean, I think that this is an amazing profession. It served me well. I have a great quality of life. I have I'm remarried, been remarried for 20 years. I have 3 beautiful daughters. I have 2 beautiful grandchildren. Building a brand new house. What more could you ask for?
Right. And probably when you went into retail at the beginning of it, because you gave back that check, you probably could have never foreseen the journey that you've had.
I had the dream.
You had the dream.
I would tell you, you have to dream. I had the dream, and I guess, I would tell you this, I'm not done dreaming either.
Right.
I'm really not.
I love it. Wow. What an amazing show, Cyndi. You are a really, obviously, positive, influential leader. I'm so happy that you came on the show, shared your story, inspired so many people. And, retail is a great career. I'm going to say that every time. Like, it's an amazing career where you meet amazing people and learn so much. And it is a life. It's like, it's your life. It becomes part of who you are. So I can't thank you enough for sharing your story.
It's been my pleasure. And I thank you. As I mentioned, I've not only read your book once, I read it twice, and I have the corners folded in. So everybody, please read her book. It's an amazing book.
Oh,
thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much. All right. So that wraps up another episode of The Positive Effect. We'll see you next week, and we'll say bye for now.
Bye, everybody.